In 1965, rioting broke out in the mostly black neighborhood of Watts, LA, after two policemen allegedly abused a black man who was accused of drunk driving. The people saw this as a racially provoked attack and were outraged. The anger exploded into the first of the worst urban riots. The residents of Watts and other neighborhoods were fed up with the political, social, and economic isolation. After not too long, the rioting spread to a 50-square-mile area with people looting stores, setting things on fire, beating any whites they came across, as well as snipers shooting at police and firefighters who were trying to control the rioting. The 1965 Watts riots lasted 5 days total, with 34 people dead, more than 1,000 injured, and $40 million of damage done to the city. The year is 1992, and Los Angeles is burning again. One of the biggest catalysts in sparking the 1992 riots was the brutal beating of Rodney King by the police in Los Angeles. He led the police on a high-speed car chase before he finally surrendered, and he was intoxicated and uncooperative, and then a lot of officers beat him, and someone caught it on their camera, and that's why we have a video of it, and that's why awareness got out. Another cause for these riots was the murder of Latasha Harlins on March 16, 1991. She was a 15-year-old black woman, and she was accused of stealing in a Korean lady's shop. And the Korean lady, her last name is Do, she picked up a gun behind the counter and shot Latasha in the back of the head. Clearly, people were outraged at this, and the woman who shot her didn't ever serve any jail time, and all she had to do was pay a $500 fine. And this put a huge strain on the relationship between Koreans and blacks in the city. So those last two pictures were of a man called Reginald Denny, who was a white truck driver, and he happened to be crossing Florence and Normandy during the riots, and he was pulled out of his car by Damian Williams and severely beaten nearly to death by 3 black men while a helicopter recorded the entire incident. Day 3, Rodney King was on the television saying, "Can we all get along?" Days 4 and 5, more random acts of violence, more burning. On May 1st, the president, George Bush, ordered military troops to go occupy LA, and by the next day the city was back under control. In the end, 55 people were killed. Most of all of them were rioters or innocent victims. Over $1 billion in damages was done. 2,000 people were injured, 7,000 were arrested, and 4,000 buildings were burned or destroyed in other ways. In a domino effect after this one, riots broke out all across the country, and these weren't just random acts of violence, these were people taking a stand against oppression. Of the 4 officers tried in the case of Rodney King, 2 were found guilty for violating his constitutional rights for unreasonable use of force.
You hit me once, I hit you back. You gave a kick, I gave a slap. You smashed a plate over my head, then I set fire to our bed.
Orenthal James Simpson was born July 9, 1947 in San Francisco, California. He later became known as the famous OJ Simpson. He was an actor, athlete, and also apparently a murderer. Nicole Brown was a 17-year-old whom he left his wife for. On June 12, 1994, Nicole Brown, now Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman were found stabbed to death outside of her condo in LA. Although all evidence in the murder pointed towards OJ Simpson, he was originally found not guilty. Later, he was found liable and was ordered to pay $33 million in damages. Okay, so here's the most important stuff that you guys need to remember. First, in 1965, the first LA riots took place, and they are more commonly known as the Watts riot because of the neighborhood they took place mostly out of. Second, the 1992 riots came because of the murder of Latasha Harlins and the beating of Rodney King. And finally, OJ Simpson was not found guilty of the murder of his wife and her friend, although all evidence points towards him, and he even wrote a book called If I Did It, which is telling metaphorically how he would have done it had he done it, which is actually how it happened, meaning he did it.